I'm Raven, and welcome to this brand new build of Revell's Battlestar Galactica model. This is the beginning of an adventure that we shall share together that won't take 2 years like Voyager. Hey, that seemed to work out in the end. I'll try and get this one out a bit faster. I've already done some thinking and planning, as I've had this model in my possession for a little bit of time whilst I was working on getting to the end of Voyager. Let's go down to the desk and see what's going on. Much like when I started with Voyager, we're going to take a look at the plan, but this time I haven't done anything. All I've done is unpacked the box, looked at the parts, thought about them. I haven't drilled or done any holes, so we are straight fresh at the beginning. I've given this some thought, and I've laid out a few plans. Internally, Galactica is far simpler than Voyager. There's no flashing parts or any necessity for any sort of complex circuitry. There'll be some LEDs for the engines, LEDs in the hangar pods, some red internal lighting that sits on just the inside surfaces of the pods, and then a little bit of light at the front in the very small windowed area. Now, as we learned from Voyager, these LED strips are very bright, so we're going to dim those down so that they aren't going to completely just annihilate and illuminate as if there's some sort of internal explosion going on. But as you can see, there's not much to it. And even better, the base already has a nice big hole and an insert for a rod. Now, the rod it comes with is solid metal, but we can replace this for a hollow tube, which will allow us to run our circuitry up invisibly into the bottom of Galactica. Having spent some time looking over the parts and examining how it all comes together, we can see how we're going to have to take the wires through the model. Everything's going to come initially through the model stand, which just comes straight up into the bottom of the Galactica, and you can see there's plenty of space around inside there for us to work around and have a small junction board either at the fore or the aft, at which point the wires have to go in various directions, one way to each of the hangar pods, to the front, and to the engines. When it comes to the front, there's plenty of space to get a flat piece of LED tape in there, and all that will need to happen is the wires will need to come up underneath that lip, at which point they'll be able to penetrate straight back into the mid-hull. With the hangar pods, it's a little bit more complicated, because not only are the pods outside of the vessel, I believe that this one hangs off somewhere around here, but we have to deal with these overhead clamps coming down as well, which, because they are hollow, works to our advantage. We can feed the cables through the overhead clamps and down into the hangar pods, which will allow us to have the top illumination of the bottom of the pod. Now you're wondering, what about that red illumination? It's a very subtle red illumination that sits on the internal hull. With these internal hull pieces, the light needs to come down and illuminate just the internal surface without spilling out huge amounts of red lights as if it was some sort of, I don't know, engine or something. So that's going to sit there, and there'll be a very subtle piece of red LED tape running somewhere along the inside. I'll cut some very small windows, which I'll then fill with microcrystal clear, which will allow the light to spill through into that area in a very diffuse, low-key manner. If I attempted to put the LEDs directly in there, it just would not look correct. The alternative would be to take one of the hangar pods and have the light shine off the edge inward, but it would be far too visually obvious. So I think having the light coming down through the top will be the best solution. Then finally, for the engines, it'll once again be a very simple principle of just having individual LEDs inside the engine which the light goes directly to. Whether that's LED tape or a single LED won't really make a difference, and I'll make that decision when we get there. And, much like with Voyager, we can assemble each of these individual pieces separately and then assemble them all into the main body at the end. Inside Galactica there'll be a very simple circuit board. It does not have to do anything beyond provide power to the lights and apply a little bit of dimming to the LED strips, and whichever LEDs that I decide to use in the end. We'll deal with all of the actual specifics of these in an electronics video later on, but it's just going to be a very small piece of copper board, much like the one we had inside Voyager, but without the 555 timer. Paint-wise, I've opted to go for a range of Vallejo paints. After my experience with the Tamiya paints, I wasn't that impressed, and I'm still not that impressed with Revell paints either, so it'll be interesting to give these ones a try. I found equivalent colours for all of the Revell colours. I will still be using this Tamiya gunmetal spray for the base of Galactica, but beyond that, we're going to be going with brush. When we get to painting, I'll talk more about the specifics of the colour conversions that I used, and what colours I am using where. Voyager was a little off when it came to the colour mixes, so I'll work harder to avoid that. Much like with Voyager, this playlist will be broken down into the various sections. It's very likely that I'm going to start with, say, the hangar pods, then the engines, and then as we come together, the videos will become more about the merging, the painting, the decals, and finally adding it to my collection display up here. I'm going to do something a little different with this one. Since I now have the 2 years experience of doing Voyager, I'm going to make some goals for this build, because that's important. I've got a couple of very simple goals that those of you who will watch the Voyager one all the way through, and I appreciate it is like 47 parts long, will have probably you'll probably already know them. So, 3 goals. Goal number 1, no light leaks. There are a few light leaks on Voyager. They're not very obvious, they're in very specific places, but I'm going to try and avoid them. Goal number 2, get the painting right. Voyager was painted fine, I made some cock-ups here and there with the mixing and what have you, but for the most part I painted it, it's good enough, it's out. So that painting is my weakness, so I'm going to focus on getting the painting just right, taking it slower, taking it a little bit at a time. And my third and final goal is to have this done by Easter. Now I know you're probably thinking, Easter, today is November 12th, so that's like 4 months away. Voyager took 2 years. I need to put more time aside to just working on these models, make it a priority. So, come Easter, if I haven't finished the model, I'll think of a suitable punishment. Leave a punishment in the comments. But until then, I'm Raven, and that's all from the desk.